to start today is this whole concept of, I think a lot of people say, I'd like to have a platform, I'm going to write this book, or maybe I've been told that I should write this book, or, I have something that I should say or something that I should talk about. And they go about attempting to move in that direction, and very frequently all kinds of things kind of can get in the way for one reason or another. But I'd like to have the conversation around creating something for the sake of creating something as a representation of self, and creating something truly as a service, truly as the service of shifting consciousness. Can we start in there somewhere?
Absolutely. It's very interesting how we all have, I believe, we all come here with a gift, a unique expression of something. And it may be something that someone else is also doing. It's also part of their service, their gift. But we will do it in our own unique way. And we develop our own unique expression based on a number of different things, including everything that we've brought in from past lives or whatever. But quite often, as we go through the process of being a child, growing up, having all those experiences, the conditioning, etc., the ego gets in the way. And what we do is we feel that we have to do something else. It's still part of expressing ourselves, but it's expressing ourselves in a different way. And, I'm a perfect example of that, because I had a number of experiences growing up that made me feel, as many people do, completely less than. And so I became driven to become famous. I thought that fame and recognition would give me something that was missing within me. And I always knew that I wanted to be a writer, and so that was the thing that I was going to do. And my little mind put it all together. Writing is your passion, so you're going to become famous writing. Mm-hmm. And I did have quite a bit of fame, and I spent a lot of energy and time in pursuing that. And it got to a point one day where something happened that completely triggered an epiphany within me. I'd been in the north of England on a television show, and after I came off the show, I was told that somebody who used to know me when I was married had called into the studio wanting to reconnect with me. And I had about a 3-hour drive all the way home, and I was thinking about this. And somehow it came to me that I'd spent most of my life chasing something that I felt would make me worthy of something, and would also make other people be sorry that they'd never recognized my worthiness growing up. And it's suddenly a whole cascade of thoughts hit me. It came to me that all of those people that I blamed for not recognizing my worthiness as a child, they didn't know me now. I changed my name. I didn't look anything like I used to look. If they ever saw me on television, they wouldn't necessarily know it was me. And even if they did, like this guy, how would I know whether they suddenly felt bad because they'd treated me badly or they hadn't recognized my worth? And it was one of those moments where everything stopped for me. And I really had to reevaluate what had I been doing? What was I chasing this fame for? What was missing within me? Because clearly the fame hadn't given me what was missing. I still felt just as unworthy as everybody else. And at that point, I took a step back and I stopped doing what I was doing, and I decided that if fame wasn't going to give me what was missing, I had to take steps to find that out for myself and regain it for myself, because we all come in complete and whole, and circumstances conspire in many cases to chip away at that, and then we begin to lose our self-value and our self-esteem. So many people feel driven to do something, and they don't know why they're being driven. They don't always know whether it's their ego that's driving them. There's usually a purpose behind every single behavior. And you and I have explored that quite a lot lately. What is the purpose behind certain reactions? With these things that we do without even realizing the instant reactions to certain things that happen, certain thoughts, certain words, certain experiences. And so finding that driver is really important, because then we can begin to recognize it and really reevaluate it and dismantle it if it's really about ego, because we're really here to shine our light. And when we find out, when we discover our soul's unique gift and unique form of expression, that's when we can be successful. That's the alignment with self. That's, you talk about pure presence, alignment to self on your show. That is it right there. And that is when we are completely resonant with everything that we are about. And when we go out and deliver whatever it is we want to share, whether it's to one person or a million, we are in such resonance that people can't help but feel that vibration and respond to it.
Yeah. It's also when the ego can really begin to work with this soul's purpose versus against it as well. Because I do think that we also need, that the ego needs to match the energy that we're putting out in the world, because the ego also helps us to kind of have the personality, if you will, that allows for that energy to move forward,
Absolutely.
But it's just a matter of, is that ego in charge, or is the soul in charge and the personality is kind of coming online with the soul instead of the other way around?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the ego, we can't avoid the ego. We're human. It's part of the package here, and therefore we need to understand its purpose. And my ego drove me, and it gave me tenacity, it gave me perseverance, it gave me ambition. Mm-hmm. All of those things can be used in a completely different way. Yeah. Once we recognize what is it that our ego is driving us to do, what are the gifts that it brings to us, and how can we use them really to achieve the real mission.
Well, and I think, too, Sandie, that sometimes, we always think that the ego part of things is the part that is grandizing, the experience, So I'm supposed to write a book, or I'm supposed to create a platform. And sometimes we think it's the ego that is making that bigger than it actually is. And I think it's also equally true that the ego, especially if, in our childhood we have had feelings of unworthiness and things like that, it's that same ego that's going to say, well, you can't do that. That's not for you to do. You're not that big. The ego does that part of it as well. And so I think it can work both ends of the stick. And I think that's why it's really important to take a really clear look at, what is the intention? Who's the voice in your head that's saying, one, you got to do this, or the voice in your head that's saying, hey, this is a wonderful idea and you can't do this. Either way, it's still a barrier, isn't it?
Yes, and it's an interesting experience, learning to understand and find that voice within you. I mean, you and I have talked a lot about my saying, typos in my tummy. Mm-hmm. And it's just a fun thing, a label that I put on a process that I didn't understand. But we all have the typo in our tummy. We all have that feeling when, we know when we're out of alignment. There's always that nagging feeling, that's something that interferes, because when things are in alignment, they just are. They just are. There's no impediment. There's nothing in the way. It's a straight line. But when they're not, there's always that tiny little seed that trips us up that's saying, I don't know, maybe not.
Mm-hmm. I think sometimes, too, matter of fact, I was just having a conversation with somebody before the call today, and there's definitely, a couple, like you say, typos in the tummy as far as moving forward with this kind of work and things like that with him. But what's interesting is I also noticed that this is all about self-awareness, and it's all about self-reflection, because sometimes that typo in the tummy is, to me anyway, is an indication, pay attention. Not necessarily that something's wrong, but pay attention. And then when you pay a little bit more attention, you can say, like in this scenario this morning, I was like, oh my gosh, I could so feel myself trying to control the situation based on what I knew from my past. But the typo was there. The typo in my tummy was definitely there. But the more I went into it, the more I thought, oh, you know what? This isn't all about that this should not happen. It's about that I need to give a little and this person needs to give a little. And if those two things can happen, then we can come back around, and then there's no typo in the tummy. But
Absolutely.
It feels like, yeah, does that make sense?
It's your soul, trying to get your attention. That's what it is. And whether it's a really mundane, practical thing. I mean, this all started because, I was working with Steve Rother on a book, and he said to me, I walked into his office one day, looked at his screen, which was about 5 feet away, and said, there's a typo. And he said, how the hell do you know that? And that made me go back within myself and think, how do I know this? And we all have that process. I call it my typo in my tummy. But if you slow down the process, you understand that there is a discomfort somewhere, and it's nagging at you, and it's trying to get your attention. And when we listen to it, and as you said, it may not be that there's something wrong. It's just, it's not complete yet. There's something more to look for here.
Hmm. I'm curious, too, Sandie, about, I know in my own process, and I think most of the certified practitioners have heard me say this one time or another, I can't tell you how many times I kind of wanted to be done. It's like where something steps forward and you think that, okay, this is the platform or this is the direction that you're supposed to go in. And you start going down that road. And, for instance, I started writing my book. And when I wrote my book, something showed up that was pretty drastic. The person who was helping to finance the writing of this book wanted me to write a completely different book. And so it's like from that moment, that was the first obstacle. And then there's the next obstacle and the next obstacle. And we were just talking before you got on the call about how the minute you say you want to work for consciousness or you want to use the gifts that are innately yours to, broadcast something new out into the world, a lot of times I think we feel like the minute we say that if it's what we're quote unquote supposed to be doing, that everything will happen with ease and grace and there won't be any glitches. I mean, I found it to be completely the opposite.
It's me too.
And that's why I think I want to have a little conversation about doing this for the sake of consciousness, doing this for the full expression of yourself versus for doing it for fame or to have a platform or ease and grace, because as far as I can tell, there's not a whole lot of ease and grace in it on the one hand, and on the other hand, man, there's a lot of ease and grace in it because you learn from every single one of those challenges.
Absolutely. I mean, yes, it always makes me laugh when people, I did it myself. You kind of wake up, you get this insight, whatever it is that does it for you. And mine was a slow process, but when it happened quite fast. And then you think, great, I'm awake. I've got all this, spiritual awareness and knowledge, and now everything is going to be wonderful, and I'm going to go out there and I'm going to live my mission. And then one thing after another comes up to really, I think, to test you and to get you to this point. I can't tell you how many missions I thought I've had. Mm-hmm. When I got to America, it was like, yes, this is my mission. Everything's going to fall into place. And for a time it did. And I'd always wanted to start a magazine. And Steve Rother says, here's a magazine. Take it. It's yours. And I think, yes, this is my mission. And then after a while, it's like, this is becoming like grunt work. And it's not so satisfying anymore. And I thought it was going to be wonderful and great things would happen. And then Children of the New Earth magazine pops up as an idea. And it's, yes, that's my mission. And now I've given up missions. I really have. And my mission is really just to go on exploring the self-awareness part, I think. If we have a mission, that's what it is. And everything else that we do is the doing of our self-expression. I don't know if I've talked to the practitioners before about Connie Kaplan's book, But that was a big moment for me when she revealed that the angels had told her that we're not here to do anything other than to shine our light. And we bring in all of these gifts, and they all make up, the unique being that we're expressing this time, and we create our doing from the expression of our being. We have to do something to keep ourselves busy and amused and keep going and earn a living, etc. And the expression of our being comes out in our doing, if we're lucky. Some people, never find the expression of their being. But I think that is our mission. It's to express our unique flavor of the light.
Yeah. Our expression, or our mission is to be in our passion, as frequently as possible, and that will take a lot of different forms. And also, what I've also noticed is in those moments where things do become kind of grunt work and they become kind of mundane or repetitive or those kinds of things, those are the moments where the universe is saying there's more. And very often we'll have a tendency to go, well, yeah, but I just started this. I've just went down this path, but the whole universe is saying, yes, you just went down that path, and you learned all the lessons, or you got all the information that you needed to get, and now here's the next step. Like you say, then all of a sudden that passion kicks in again because you're learning again.
Yeah. We limit ourselves when we say, this is my mission. I'm going to, produce Children of the New Earth magazine, and nothing else gets my attention from that moment.
Right. Yeah, I also think that to be in that mindset, that in that moment, this is the expression of your passion, and in the next moment, that will be your expression of your passion, and allowing it to be that fluid. I think it has a tendency to, like you say, let more flow. I think too that we get caught up in this thing of a loyalty or a feeling of responsibility to whatever time and energy we've put in, to mastering certain skills. Right.
So, if I've decided I'm going to be a writer, I have to do that because I've invested so much time and energy in honing my craft.
Yeah.
But we can turn on a dime at any moment.
Yeah.
I loved it when my daughter had a burning desire to be in the theatre, and she moved heaven and earth to do that. She got a scholarship to drama school, and then she worked really hard and took jobs that didn't pay, and then finally got a job in the theatre and experienced her passion. And then a few years later, she said to me, "I don't want to let you down, but I don't want to do this anymore." And I said, "Great, that's fantastic. You wanted to do it, you did it. That's it. You don't have to do it for the rest of your life."
Yeah, and definitely not in that way. It's like the expression goes on, but the way it's expressed changes. That's the mutable part.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things I've learned is just to allow myself to be me, and allow my interest to change, to follow whatever is leading me in a particular direction at a time, but also remain open to whatever else is out there, whatever else sparks my interest. Because, it can't spark your interest if there isn't a resonance there.
Right.
And if there's a resonance, there's a clue, there's something there for you. Maybe big, maybe small.
Yeah. So, I think a lot of people also come into life with this idea that they're here to do something, or they're here to, that they are here to write that book, or they are here to have that platform, but they don't necessarily know yet what that actually is about or what that actually will look like. Do you have any suggestions about that person that kind of has that inkling, that feeling inside like so many of us do, and yet they're not aware yet of the details of that?
Well, the details can emerge once you acknowledge that, and once you really understand whatever it is and what the driver is behind it. Because, what is the driver behind wanting to write a book? You know, there are many, many drivers. It could be because I want to be famous. It could be because I want to make money. It could be because you want to share a piece of information that you have, and you're not attached to whether one person picks up that book or 5 million pick up that book. Self-awareness is a really important piece of it. I think until you've got self-awareness, you know, you're floundering in the dark. And sometimes it's a little bit difficult to get that self-awareness from within the self. So what we have to do is go outside of the self. You know, one of the things that I would like to do today is, you know, give everybody an experience of being outside of themselves and looking at the, you know, themselves from a different perspective. Because once you detach from that and all of the physical and the emotional things that go with it, you actually get so much clarity that you get insight about yourself, about your mission, about the situation, you know, that's impossible to get while you're in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's been so true. I know of the sessions that we've had lately. I've shared bits and pieces of that with the certified practitioners. It's really profound especially to go in and get a perspective that you know is not your conscious perspective, you know, because you know it resonates, the information resonates when you get that, and yet at the same time, it's not what you thought it was, you know.
No.
So, yeah, it's really amazing.
You know, and I love doing that. I mean, when I found NLP, to me it was, I knew something was out there. Many people had said to me, you should be a psychologist. And I did start studying. I mean, I studied, you know, privately my entire adult life, but I did start studying formally. But there was something intrinsically wrong, inherently wrong in, you know, making people relive situations over and over and over and over again, because when you're reliving it, you're re-experiencing it.
Right,
in
re-traumatizing yourself.
Yes, exactly. And I thought, this can't be right. People want instant solutions, and there has to be a way to get it. And when I found NLP, it was like such a gift, because the thing is, there's no attachment. You know, when I work with you, I am so curious at what your unconscious mind is going to deliver to you to resolve this issue. And I think that's something that we all need to learn, is rather than putting our opinions and our conditioning on things, our expectations, is to be curious that something may not be the way it appears to be.
Almost never is, really. I mean, you think about all those aha moments in your life. They're aha moments because they came out of something that was unconscious that then became conscious. You know, your conscious mind was thinking about it in one particular way, and all of a sudden the aha is like, oh my God, it wasn't that way at all, but it's this way, and isn't that much better? You know, that much fuller, richer. So
I love epiphanies, and I remember reading a book once where someone said epiphanies happen when the brain stops. It's in that moment of complete and utter, you know, there's nothing to think, because you're brought to a halt, and then space is created and the epiphanies happen.
Yeah, makes perfect sense.